second there, I'm hearing them shout questions. No, he didn't even slow down. He sped up as he left the room. So we now know that there is a special counsel in the investigation of Hunter Biden. We knew that the investigation per the DOJ after that plea deal fell apart that he had made. And what some termed as not just sweetheart, it was like near perfection of coddling, but whatever. When that fell apart, we knew that there was an ongoing investigation. Now we know that the U.S. Attorney for the state of Delaware, which is also the home state of the President of the United States, is going to be appointed to oversee with all authority the investigation as special counsel into Hunter Biden. Emily, your initial thoughts?
You know, his experience of prosecuting white-collar crimes goes back to 1986 there in Delaware and including federal law. So this is an interesting history to now transition from U.S. Attorney, which he will still remain, to now overseeing special counsel. We know per the act that there's no constraint on the time duration of a special counsel investigation. We know that at the end of every year, however, the Attorney General can terminate. We don't anticipate that happening here, but it's interesting that there might not be we might not see answers for a while, per what we've seen in the past. I see you nodding
yeah, for a while. The question is, would that be after the election?
Important to this is the special counsel can choose to obviously investigate, but can choose whether it's warranted to go to prosecution or not. I talked about this weeks ago, that this was the move that protects Hunter Biden, drags this out, and then a special counsel says, well, it's not warranted prosecution.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Hunter Biden. I've been saying that the whole time. I want to know what protects the president from the rest of the country finding out what the truth is.
But if you eliminate Hunter and Devin Archer and others, you start working your way, you're protecting the president. You draw this out. It's not about Hunter. It's about not getting to Joe Biden.
There are two big names I would love to hear from right now: Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler. These were the whistleblowers, and their accusations were not just against Merrick Garland and the DOJ, they were against David Weiss, who has now been given special counsel status. You just heard Merrick Garland say there's that letter, and he is right about that, of Weiss corroborating Merrick Garland's story, saying, Merrick Garland, I never asked him for special counsel status, and he has stood by that. Weiss has stood by Merrick Garland, their testimonies the same. But the whistleblowers have something else to say. And remember, the whistleblowers had no motive in coming forward. They did so at their own peril career-wise. And Gary Shapley said in a meeting with 6 other witnesses that David Weiss lacked the authority to charge Hunter Biden. And remember, all of the search warrants he pursued that went unanswered, 2 that were stymied. They wanted to search a vessel in which it had Hunter Biden's key pieces of evidence, and that was stymied. So Gary Shapley, what does Gary Shapley think? What does Joseph Ziegler think? They had no motive, apolitical individuals. Joseph Ziegler, a former Democrat, and they came forward. What do they think today, knowing David Weiss now has special counsel status?
And will we get to hear from them again? I mean, if this goes on forever and their hands don't get called in the air outside of the media, who's going to be calling upon them to talk and testify? I want to bring in now Jonathan Turley, constitutional law expert and a Fox News contributor. Jonathan, we all sat here wondering, wait, did we hear that correctly? Were you surprised it's David Weiss, a special counsel in the Hunter Biden investigation?
I was not surprised, but I was not nearly as delighted as I would have been 2 years ago when many of us were calling for this appointment. They waited for the appointment of a special counsel after the statute of limitations has run on critical crimes like the tax violations in 2014, 2015. They waited until Weiss himself was accused of slowing or suppressing efforts. At least the whistleblower suggested that he was not able to pursue cases and didn't aggressively push back on that. So there's going to be a lot of questions here. This is occurring as Congress is moving aggressively to pursue some of these issues. This new status can certainly slow that process down. Weiss was at the top of the list of Congress to be brought in to explain, why did you allow the statute of limitations to run? Why were Biden people tipped off about raids? Why was there an interference with investigators in trying to interview Hunter Biden? All of those questions are now likely to be delayed before they are answered. The other thing that I noticed was not in this announcement was a special counsel to look into the Biden corruption scandal. He referred to Hunter Biden once again. Garland has constantly been carefully framing this issue as only Hunter Biden.
Exactly.
Congress is looking at a much broader and more significant corruption scandal here. A special counsel would be useful in pursuing that. But that doesn't sound like the mandate that Merrick Garland just gave Weiss.
Jonathan, two questions for you. You know, we've seen two molds in the special counsel. You've seen the Jack Smith special counsel, which has been robust and very public and rather rapid. And then you've seen the Robert Hur one looking into the Biden documents, which has been notably more quiet. You have said perhaps Robert Hur's face belongs on a milk carton because we haven't heard a lot from him. So in what mold do you think this David Weiss special counsel will fall, number one? And number two, does this provide any sort of impediments for the congressional investigation into Hunter Biden and the Biden family?
Well, I think that's the concern. The initial concern is whether Weiss is damaged goods. You usually appoint a special counsel who will satisfy all sides, that this is someone who doesn't bring any baggage to the question, who can resolve these issues. These whistleblowers were critical of Weiss. You know, Weiss has suggested that he always had this authority. The whistleblowers said that he said the exact opposite to staff. They've suggested he allowed statute of limitations to run. That has not been the suggestion of the Department of Justice. So the reappointment of Weiss is going to raise some questions. As for the congressional investigations, there's no question that making him special counsel will now make it more difficult for Congress to get answers from him and from this investigation. It is not likely to deter Congress, however, particularly if they're shifting towards an impeachment inquiry. And once again, it goes to what is the mandate here? This goes beyond Hunter Biden. They've already allowed critical crimes to expire. Now, for Hunter Biden, this is obviously a chilling moment. You know, his counsel told the prosecutors in open court, quote, just rip it up. Now, I got to tell you, as a criminal defense attorney, if I ever said that to a prosecutor in open court, my client would be toast. They would just say, well, that's fine with us. We'll hit you with everything we've got. So the question is whether Weiss is going to follow that standard response and say, all right, let me introduce you to my friend called Farah. And you'll have an indictment as a foreign agent. And I'm also going to take a look at some of these other crimes. That's the cost of ripping up a deal in open court.
Jonathan, it's Emily. So on that note, you know, just 2 weeks ago, the Justice Department agreed to allow David Weiss to testify, and specifically to testify before Congress about the alleged cover-up. So does this somehow insulate him from that testimony, or can Congress's power supersede any type of special counsel inoculation?
It is. I mean, look, if he appears as a special counsel in the middle of an investigation, you'll be able to write his responses on a postage stamp. He'll just keep on saying, good question. We're looking into it. He's not going to be, you know, very forthcoming. What Congress expected is that given the essential closure of the tax issues, that he could respond to these whistleblowers. This insulates Weiss and the Department of Justice more than it necessarily moves the investigation forward. It does not appear that Garland expanded the mandate. Instead, he changed the status of Weiss, and he's going to be able now to say that there's an ongoing investigation. I'd love to answer these questions, but pound sand.
Yeah, just real quickly, my thoughts about the U.S. Attorney for the home state of the President of the United States, as he's now been implicated, according to Republicans in the House, per these bank records, into at least the need for a deeper investigation. How does this affect their dig on Biden?
Well, that is the most glaring aspect of this. That is, I think that the redeeming moment for Merrick Garland would have been to admit that the public view of his department is at an all-time low. It's lower than his predecessor, Bill Barr. There's a lack of trust that the department can look at these things independently of the administration. And he could have said, for that reason, we are going to expand the mandate. I'm going to ask a new special counsel, not necessarily Weiss, to look into all these questions, including whether any influence peddling involved criminal conduct. That would have been the redeeming moment. This is not that moment. This moment gives Weiss protection, it gives Department of Justice protection, but it doesn't really give that many guarantees that we're going to see a more aggressive investigation going forward. I'm hoping that won't be the case. And I don't mean to trash Weiss. We haven't heard from him. But the problem is we're less likely to hear from him now.
Well, don't you think we kind of heard what people think of him close to the investigation through Shapley and Ziegler?
Well, obviously, he has a problem
so
with his
you may
team.
not want to trash him, but they got backs.
But they have raised some very disturbing questions. I mean, I've never heard of an investigation like this. And I still can't believe that an assistant U.S. attorney took it upon herself to say, don't ask any questions about the president, or I'm going to, tip off the Biden folks, or, we don't want to go there. Those are pretty heavy decisions to make if you're an AUSA. But this is going to make it more difficult for Congress to get answers on that, because all of those witnesses are largely part of the team, except the whistleblowers. So the whistleblowers are likely cut out on this process.
Jonathan Turley, thank you for being with us as the news is breaking now about a special counsel named by the DOJ in the Hunter Biden case. Appreciate your time.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.